I'm 85 years old, and I suppose that's long enough to have collected a few ghosts. Though it took me most of those years to admit I'd been keeping them. For decades, I thought silence was a kind of virtue. A real man kept his grief tucked in his pocket next to his keys, spoke little, worked hard, and let the weight inside him harden into a sort of second spine. I was born in 1939, the year the world caught fire, and by the time I was old enough to remember, ration cards and radio crackle were the sounds of safety. My father came back from the war with that 1,000-yard stare people used to mention only in whispers. My mother used words as carefully as money. I grew up believing that quiet meant strength, so I practiced being strong. Through school, through the Navy, through 43 years working on the railways, I measured my worth by how little emotion escaped my mouth. When people around me cried, I offered them towels, never tears. When my friends drank too much and rambled about their failures, I steered the talk back to baseball. I married Martha when I was 26. She had eyes that caught light like polished walnut, and she hugged people as if every rib deserved acknowledgement. She used to say, I laugh from the chest, but never from the heart. I told her my heart had more important tasks, pumping blood, keeping me alive, because that kind of flirting felt safer than real confession. But over the years, my restraint grew roots that strangled things I didn't know, still needed breathing space. When our first son died at 7 days old, from complications they assured us were one of those things, I said nothing. I held her shoulders at the funeral. I thanked the priest. I drove us home in silence while her sobs hit the dashboard like rain. She waited a long time for words that never came. Eventually, silence became our third partner at the table, chewing between us. Our daughter Linda learned that same language of endurance. She inherited her mother's warmth, but my habit of swallowing things. I could see in her teenage eyes that she was afraid I might evaporate if she asked the wrong question. I remember one night when she came home from college, crying over some boy who'd abandoned her. I poured her hot cocoa, nodded, and said, "You'll be all right." She needed more than that. A father's permission to fall apart, but my mouth locked even as I wanted to open it. The older I got, the more my silence felt like a skill I couldn't unlearn. It kept me stable, reliable, praised by coworkers as a rock. People like rocks until they realize rocks can't hold you back. When Martha died 10 years ago, I faced the bill for all that unspent conversation. She went first thing in the morning, sitting upright in her armchair, the newspaper folded neatly in her lap. Half the neighborhood came to the funeral, smiling softly at me, offering casseroles. I nodded through everyone's condolences like a polite guest at my own life. After they left, the house began its long apprenticeship in loneliness. Anyone who's been widowed will tell you, the evenings stretch like elastic. You can rearrange furniture, fold laundry with precision of a soldier, tune the old radio for company, but nothing quite covers the sound of someone not breathing next to you. That first week, I found myself talking out loud, not words of grief, just small things. "You'd like this show, Martha," or "Don't worry, I watered your spider plant." I caught myself mid-sentence and laughed, embarrassed, though there was no one to witness it. But the habit stuck. Each night, a little more slipped out. And then came the first visit. At least, that's what it felt like. I can't tell you if it was imagination or some leftover energy of hers. I was dozing in my chair, and the air shifted, warm but light, like someone had opened the door for sunlight though it was past midnight. It didn't scare me. I muttered, "You came back," and I swear the clock ticked twice, then went silent for almost a minute. In that hush, I felt her forgiveness, not some booming miracle. Just the kind of gentle permission a loving person gives after years of waiting. My tears that night were the first real words she'd heard from me in 50 years. After that, conversations with ghosts became a kind of therapy. I don't mean it in the haunted house, spooky way. I mean the echoes that fill a life when we finally listen. I'd sit beneath the picture wall and let each face step forward in my mind. My father, stern in uniform, asking why I never told him I was afraid of him. My mother, eyes tired but kind, wondering why I thought comfort was weakness. My old friend Jack, who'd confided his plans of divorce, but the expert in holding my tongue, told him to sleep on it. He hanged himself a week later. Those ghosts didn't ask for apologies so much as acknowledgement. They wanted to be named, and every time I dared to answer, I felt something loosen inside. It was as if the years of silence had packed my chest with gravel, and now each memory I spoke shook one pebble free. I couldn't change what was, but I could finally describe it. That was enough to start breathing fully again. I also started journaling, ridiculous for someone who once mocked diaries. But there's something about ink and paper that reminds a man time is finite. I'd write to whoever surfaced that day. "Dear Martha," one page begins, "Today I fixed your kitchen drawer. Yes, it only took me a decade to admit you were right about the worn rail." Sometimes I wrote to Linda, who's 55 now, still choosing my words carefully, but not so cripplingly sparing. She visits on Sundays, and though we still have that inherited pause between topics, we fill it better now. I told her once, "You grew up with a father who talked too little. I hope you unlearn that sooner than I did." She touched my arm and said she was trying. That trying will echo kindly when I'm gone. If you think speaking to ghosts means losing your grip, maybe you've never let your memories talk back. They don't rant or threaten, they instruct. The voice of my father is softer now, telling me the world he came from didn't permit tenderness, but maybe wanted it all along. The laughter of my friends sounds clearer when I dare to hear it without shame. Even the regrets, those stout, stubborn ones, start fading like smoke through open windows. Silence once seemed like armor, but armor rusts from the inside. The turning point came one morning when my neighbor's teenage grandson knocked at my door. He was carrying his skateboard. Bruised knees, nervous eyes, said his parents were fighting and he didn't know where else to go. I made us tea, the universal cure, all of my generation, and he started talking about how he wanted to disappear. The old me would have nodded, offered a pat on the shoulder, and let silence smother the moment. But this new rattled. Ghost taught old man listen differently. I told him I'd wanted to disappear myself many times. His eyes widened, as if hearing an elderly man confess that was a foreign language. I told him pain ignored becomes pain inherited, that when we swallow every ache, the next generation chokes on what we refuse to digest. We talked for an hour. When he left, he hugged me like grandchildren sometimes forget they can. I walked back inside shaking slightly, not from age, but from the realization that ghosts aren't only behind us, they're ahead, waiting for what we teach the living. In sharing my weakness, I'd saved a moment of his strength. And that, I think, is what my life had been preparing me for all along. What do I mean by I speak to ghosts? I finally allow the invisible parts of my life to have voices. Regret, guilt, love unspoken, laughter misplaced. They all have frequencies that can travel farther than words if we stop blocking them. When you grow old, the mind becomes a kind of attic. You climb the stairs less often, but every box you open carries its own weather. You can stand there coughing from the dust, or you can raise the window and let the air stir. I've learned that releasing old silence does more than ease loneliness. It tunes you back into the larger story, a human choir that never stopped singing, even when you refused to join. One lesson I want you, whoever you are, to talk now. Before your ghosts learn your house better than your friends do. Before your children grow too accustomed to interpreting your quiet as disinterest. Tell the truth not because you owe it, but because it's lighter to carry shared. If something aches, give it words, otherwise it rots into something heavier. And if you're afraid, admit it aloud. Fear name becomes smaller. Maybe you think conversation won't fix anything, but silence certainly won't. You don't have to wait until you're 85 to relearn this. Try it tonight. Call someone whose name has followed you in thought. Say what you wished you'd said last year. Write a letter to someone gone, even if you burn it after. Talk to your memories kindly. Each one was trying to teach you survival. When I speak these things into the chilly air of my living room, I feel the furniture settle as though listening. I picture all the people I loved arranged around me in patient curiosity. I tell them I remember, that I'm sorry, that I'm grateful. The room grows gentler after that. Life's trick is cruel but simple. The cost of not speaking your truth is living with its echo. Mine echoed for decades until I mistook the sound for silence itself. Now every morning, I greet the day the way I should have greeted my wife, my children, my friends, with a good morning. That actually means I'm still here, still willing to talk. Age has thinned my voice, made it wobble, but wobbly honesty beats stone silent strength any day. Sometimes, when I finish my tea, I raise the cup toward the empty chair and say, "You were right, Martha." The air seems to nod. If you told me at 40 that my greatest accomplishment would be learning to speak gently to things I once ignored, I'd have laughed. But there's a peculiar dignity in late learning. It tells the young that change never expires. And maybe that's why the ghosts come, not to haunt, but to help us pronounce every bit of love we muffled. Here's my final confession, one I wish every man of my generation would repeat: being silent doesn't make you strong. Listening does, speaking does, crying does. The world taught us to swallow feelings like bitter pills and call it stoicism. But real courage is tasting life, every side of it, even the sour. If you hold back long enough, you stop belonging anywhere, among the living or the lost. I see that now, and I forgive myself for learning slow. So I spend my days as an old conductor with time as his train, calling out stations of memory, signaling safely through the tunnels of yesterday, voices of passengers long departed still humming in my ears. Distance doesn't frighten me anymore. I've got company in every shadow. When I finally reach whatever platform waits for me, I'll step out lighter than I've ever been. Because at last, I spoke, and the ghosts listened.